I'm just here reflecting on the past, my upbringing, what I saw as a kid growing up in the 70s. And I wanted to share with you something that happened in my hood. I grew up in the hood, and the hood was the hood all over America. It was the same hood. Same things went down. I seen kids who didn't have food to eat. I saw old people who were mistreated. I saw all types of different things, but I also saw many, many beautiful things in the hood as well. I saw people treating people good. I saw the way people loved on people. I saw how people protected people in the hood. I saw how in the hood they didn't let anybody ride in. I saw how the kids could play in the hood. I saw a lot of beautiful things in the hood, and the hood taught me a lot of things that you couldn't learn in a college, that you couldn't learn anywhere else except in the hood. It learned tough life stories. It gave you some sense. It gave you a sense of community as well. The hood was a lot of things. The hood wasn't bad, and all this talk about they ghetto this, they ghetto that. A lot of those people who rattling off those words, a lot of those people who using that terminology never ever been in the so-called ghetto, as they might say. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Soapbox. I'm Judius Pinkston, your host and your urban historian. And remember to like and subscribe if you like what you hear. Get this message out to as many people as possible. That is what we hope for, and that is what we're doing. I'm stepping up on the soapbox. Let's get into it. So I don't even entertain that kind of thing, because a lot of times people don't know what they're talking about anyway. But I'm going to share with you a story about the hood, a real life story of people. You had all kinds of people in the hood. You had people who were educated. You had people who were uneducated. You had people who had jobs. You had people who didn't have jobs. You had people who were paid minimum wage, and some people who were paid well. They were all in the hood. And that was because of the fact, even though segregation didn't exist on paper, segregation was real. And you couldn't buy a home off the bat. That was the way it was in every hood, from California to New York, from the West to the East Coast. Everybody experienced the same thing. In my hood, you had crime in the hood. And I can remember an incident that had happened with, I'm not going to say his name was ML. And so ML had supposedly shot a security guard during a robbery or something that happened of that sort. The difference between a black person committing that kind of crime and a white person committing that crime is white people are treated as individuals. They have individualism, while black people are treated as a monolith. They don't have individualism. They have no personhood, full personhood. As a matter of fact, the first real, true, free Americans was my generation. Get that? My generation. My parents' generation didn't have free. They couldn't marry who they wanted to marry. If you happen to fall in love with somebody white, it was against the law in some states to get married. They didn't have autonomy. They didn't have full autonomy. And so that's what it was to be an American, and what it is to be American in many, many ways. You know, Jim Crow just went underground. Jim Crow is not gone. It went underground. Just take a look at what's happening now. Out of our Supreme Court, the law they just vomited out in the Supreme Court. But anyhow, I digress. So this is about a story from my memory, from my childhood, about the hood. Um, ML had supposedly committed some crime. So the local police department, the sheriff's department, SWAT, all came down on our neighborhood and came in like the Gestapo. It was a beautiful, warm, sunny day. Kids were out playing on the lawn and on the sidewalk. Adults were playing the music, and the hood was alive. Our neighborhood was alive. And people were barbecuing and just having a good time and enjoying the sunny weather. And the police came in. It was close to sundown, but the sun wasn't down yet. The sun was still just above the horizon. And they came in and sirens blaring. Uh, And everyone was wondering what was going on, but it wasn't like they hadn't done it before. And so mothers were getting the children off of the streets, and they came in, guns, rifles, shotguns, and began to say on loudspeakers, everybody indoors, everybody go in the house. You know, you would never have that in a so-called average American neighborhood in the country, but it happened all the time in the projects of the United States. And so everyone was running indoors, and the police weren't considered our friends. They did not make themselves friendly to children, and they were not considered our friends, not in real life, maybe on TV, but not in real life. And as the kids went indoors, and as women and children and all the other people began to run inside and were forced inside, young African American males, young men, young boys, teenagers were slammed to the ground, handcuffed, and drug away. Some hit, chased, and everything else. And this was the way that things got done. And so my mother had a friend, and she was about 7 or 8 months pregnant. And she came out and she was wondering what was going on. Like a lot of people, you had senior citizens, you had some of everybody in the hood. And she came out and she walked down the sidewalk and got on the main sidewalk and was wondering what was going on, or what's all the commotion. She was struck in the face by the butt of a police officer's gun, his shotgun, and put it in her face, and she screamed, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant, please. And he told her to get her ass, didn't help her up, get her ass up and go in the house. And so this was our reality in the hood. I've seen all kinds of things take place because of the stressors in the hood. And don't get me wrong, in the 1950s, you had everybody that lived in the projects. You had Italians, you had Irish, you had so many other different people that lived in the projects, but they were able to accomplish upward mobility, to leave. And many of the people, for various reasons, for social and economic reasons, weren't allowed to leave. The social being that they belonged to a certain group, they weren't allowed to leave. The economics were the fact that they weren't given jobs, which did not enable them to leave. So there were so many things that were going on that caused people to be stuck in the hood. And the people that were more educated were able to leave the hood after a while, were able to leave the projects after a while. And so the only people that were stuck were the people who couldn't get out for whatever reason. I remember a lady across the street, because of the stressors and things like that happen. You have the police departments leveling the full fury and the full power of the local police department and the sheriff's department and the SWAT teams on neighborhoods with impunity, on neighborhoods, treating them like terrorist organizations rather than just another part of the community, and treating Black people as aliens when Black folks have been here for 400 years and have built this nation. But this is the blame the victim mentality that exists in this nation right till today, because otherwise it indicts the nation and it pushes against the meritocracy, you know, dialogue, the meritocracy belief that we have. There is no meritocracy. There is no bootstrap mentality. Everybody that came here was helped, and everybody that came here had help. So that whole bootstrap mentality is a flat lie, and it's designed to blame the victims or the folk who are on the bottom rung. But anyway, I digress. And so I watched a woman across the street from where we lived have a nervous breakdown. And I can remember the kids all saying that they're going to take her to J Ward. And they took her out in a straitjacket. And J Ward was the psych ward at the local hospital. And so she was taken there. I remember people snapping because they couldn't handle the pressures they were under. I remember Black women being blamed for their children being out in the streets, their children being unfed, their children not having proper clothing. I remember that. I remember how society treated the Black women who have been the lowest, poorest treated part of our society ever, historically, ever. I remember how the Black mothers were treated. And I remember how much sense, how much all of the things that I was taught. I remember all those things. And I remember that you couldn't get it. And I know because when I went to college, I realized how ill-equipped many of the white kids and white adults were when it came to sensibility. Because the Black sensibility that we got in the projects in the 1970s and in the 60s, but in my era, the 70s, you could get nowhere else. I remember students coming up to me and telling me, thank you for your perspective. Me and another brother, they were telling us, thank you for your perspective. I hadn't thought about it like that. And we were like, what? We were just giving our opinion. But I suddenly realized that what I had gained from the hood, I could get nowhere else. I could get nowhere else. So many people have a love-hate relationship with the hood. They love what they got from it, but they hated what they had to experience. So much love coming from me when it comes to the hood. Much love. And if I could say one thing, I'm going to quote what Ice Cube said in Boys in the Hood. Either they don't know, don't show, or just don't care about what's going on in the hood. With that, I'm going to say peace to the brothers in the Middle East, and I'm out. If you like what you hear and you want to be a guest on the show, to step up on your soapbox, please like and subscribe and reach out. And when it's your turn, step up. Stepping down off my soapbox. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.